Miss Marvel is going to soon be making her big debut within the MCU, thanks to her own solo Disney Plus series. And I for one am incredibly hyped to see her adapted for the small screen. Kamala Khan is a fantastic character. However, heroes are only as good as their villains. And Kamala has certainly faced off against some insanely powerful ones. Don't believe me? How about I make you a list? You know I was gonna do that anyways. Kind of the entire point of this video. From a power-hungry time traveler to a beloved ally, all the way to a famous inventor trapped in the body of a bird, these are Miss Marvel's most powerful foes. Let's go ahead and dive right into it. Let's start this video off with a character who isn't explicitly a Miss Marvel villain exclusively, but is one that she's faced off with on a couple of different occasions. And if I'm going to be looking at the most powerful foes that she's gone toe-to-toe with, how could I not include Kang the Conqueror here? We all probably know who Kang is at this point. He's the future descendant of Reed Richards, who decided to use his extraordinary knowledge and technology from the 31st century to travel throughout time to gain power beyond anyone's wildest imagination. He's been a longtime foe of many different Marvel characters, including the Avengers and the Fantastic Four. So of course, Kamala has faced off with him on a couple of different occasions. But you know, since I'm taking this time to talk about Kamala and Kang, how could I not mention the time that they got smashed together within Warp World, becoming a weird amalgamation of the two of them called Kamala Kang. She was exactly what you would imagine that she is. Basically just Kamala Khan with the ability to stretch and embiggen and all that. However, she can also stretch her body in the fourth dimension, traveling through space and time itself by doing so. Out of all of the Warp World combinations, this honestly might be the weirdest one, and I love it all the more for it. As cool as that is, though, we probably won't see anything like that within the MCU. That being said, I wouldn't be surprised if we see her join in on the fight against Kang when he inevitably makes his presence known within the main reality. Unless he gets taken out by the end of the phase by the Fantastic Four or maybe Ant-Man. I mean, he is supposed to play a part in Quantumania, so I guess that is a possibility. Although I'm fairly certain that pretty much everyone would be disappointed if that's how it actually goes down. So, if I had to venture a guess, he's gonna be around for a big team-up. Something in the same vein as Avengers Endgame. Probably. Miss Marvel has always looked up to Captain Marvel. That's something that the trailers for the show have done a pretty good job of hammering home. And heck, she even went so far as to take Carol Danvers' previous hero name as her own. But that doesn't mean that they've always been super buddy-buddy with each other, in case the fact that she's on this list at all didn't already tip you off to that. The two wound up being adversaries during the Civil War II story arc, which saw Kamala on the opposite side to her idol, when she found out that Carol was set on using an Inhuman who could somewhat predict the future to help stop crimes before they even happened. Which sounds all well and good, until a team of heroes along with Kamala were sent to stop a kid from burning down a high school, only for her to discover that it was someone that she knew who hadn't actually done anything. When all that was said and done, Kamala went and joined up with Iron Man's side in the conflict. It had to have been hard on Kamala to have that fight against someone she looked up to like that. Kinda makes you wonder if we will see something similar to that in the near future within the MCU. We know that the two characters are going to be working alongside one another in the Marvels movie, so they'll presumably be on good terms once that movie is over and done with. Maybe in the future they'll find some way to adapt Civil War II, and then we'll get to see these two characters duke it out. I'd watch that. I think it's pretty much a requirement that at some point every hero must be confronted by a baddie that is basically an evil version of them. Iron Man has Ironmonger, Captain America has Red Guardian, Spider-Man has Venom, Superman has both Zod and Bizarro, and Kamala Khan has Stormranger, which is a really dumb name, but we're just gonna ignore that. Stormranger came about when Miss Marvel was transported to an alternate reality, as you do within comics, where she bonded with a Kree nanosuit. At first, the suit seemed to only be of a benefit for her, who brought it back to her main reality and used it to augment her powers. If by this point you're already starting to have flashbacks to Secret Wars in the symbiote suit, I really wouldn't blame you. It's basically the exact same plot points beat for beat. At one point, Kamala faced off against Discord, who will be on this list a little bit later on, don't you worry. During the fight, the suit tried to force her to kill him, which is an obvious no-no. Then, later on, it did that again in a fight against Mr. Hyde. After she once again refused to comply, the suit separated itself from her, taking on a humanoid shape similar to Kamala's, and thus, the murderous Stormranger was born. Power-wise, this thing can do pretty much everything Kamala can, from shape-shifting to stretching to embiggening. In addition to that, it can also interface with nearly all forms of technology via its nanotech, and it can reshape itself to create new weapons and pieces of equipment at will. So basically, it's kind of what would happen if Iron Man's suit from Infinity War suddenly became evil. Yeah, that's actually pretty accurate. You know, there are a surprising number of heroes who are practicing superheroisms who can't even drink legally yet. I'm talking about underage heroes. Kids, effectively, like Kamala Khan. At one point, the champions were facing off against an Asgardian dragon that was left over from the War of the Realms event above a high school. During the fight, Viv started to malfunction and caused some damage not only to the school itself, but also injured Kamala in the process. After this, the government quickly passed what they called Kamala's Law, or the Underage Superhuman Welfare Act, that effectively barred those under the age of 21 from taking part in superhero activities. Obviously, nobody cared. All the young heroes just kinda kept doing what they were doing before. Superheroes aren't exactly great at following rules. We had an entire civil war over that. It was kind of a big deal. So, to enforce the law, an organization called Child Hero Reconnaissance and Disruption Law Enforcement, or C.R.A.D.L.E, was founded. And naturally, this group came into conflict with quite a few younger heroes, including Kamala, which is kind of ironic considering the fact that the law was named after her. And they certainly caused quite a bit of trouble, even managing to detain several heroes, which is impressive considering most of them don't have any powers themselves. Could we see something like this in the MCU? It's certainly possible, given the growing number of younger heroes, and the fact that a Young Avengers film seems to be inevitable at this point. Having C.R.A.D.L.E pop up in the future could be a great conflict for them to have to deal with. Even though that whole storyline dealing with C.R.A.D.L.E was much more of a Champions thing than the Young Avengers, but you know what? Close enough. Kamran might not be the most well-known character, but what he is capable of certainly shows that he is a powerful foe for Kamala to take on. This guy actually used to be a childhood friend of Kamala's. His family and her family were once very close until they moved away. Years later, the family returned to Jersey City and reconnected with the Khans. After witnessing Kamala changing into her Miss Marvel outfit, Kamran revealed to her that he was himself an enhanced individual. Then he proceeded to try to woo her, which worked out pretty well, right up until he kidnapped her and brought her before Lineage. Kamran on his own is fairly dangerous, being capable of storing and discharging bioelectric energy, even going so far as being able to imbue objects with this energy, causing them to explode a few moments later. But honestly, the most dangerous thing as far as Kamala is concerned is their shared history and the fact that she trusted him. That is pretty rough. Being betrayed by somebody that you thought was a friend is never easy. Given that Kamala in the comics got her powers due to her latent inhuman genes, it would make sense that she would wind up facing off against quite a few other characters with a similar origin. Take Kaboom here, for example. She was a fairly normal girl right up until Black Bolt activated the Terrigen bombs. Then suddenly, boom, she's enhanced. That had to make for a rather interesting weekday. Mainly, she developed electrokinesis, which allowed her to generate a whack ton of electrical energy natively and output it via massive blasts. It also gave her a sick makeover, as any time she used her powers, her hair would glow bright blue and emit electrical sparks, which is crazy on brand for someone who is kinda punkish in style, who uses electrical attacks. Flaming hair also would have fit if she could like throw fireballs or something. Same with like ice attacks. Basically anytime that your hair also turns into the element that you're throwing, it looks cool. Becky St. Jude, aka Lockdown, is another prime example of why Carol Danvers was wrong during Civil War II. This young woman served as a member of Carol's Cadets, that super team that I mentioned during Carol Danvers' section. And out of all of them, she might have honestly been the most die-hard. When Kamala called for the team to disband, as what they were doing was wrong, Becky violently disagreed, engaging her plasma armor, a highly advanced suit that allows her to fly and fire off energy blasts, and she engaged Ms. Marvel in combat. To her credit, despite not having any actual powers herself outside of the suit, she was able to handle herself against Kamala pretty well, though she was ultimately bested and Kamala went on to join Iron Man. Out of all the characters on this list, Becky here is one that I could totally see them using within the MCU at one point. Maybe have her get introduced during the first season of the show as one of Kamala's classmates. Then by season 2, she can get a hold of the armor and start giving Kamala some trouble. You know, Ultron is one of the most dangerous enemies the Avengers have ever faced off against. Heck, he might be the most dangerous. And that is all thanks to the fact that you can't really kill the guy via conventional means. Because in the end, he's just computer code. Computer code can copy itself over and over and over again. Well, Doc.X here is kinda similar in a lot of ways, as he is a sentient computer virus. Initially created by an administrator for the World of Battlecraft game, Doc.X was initially sent after another player. The dude probably ninja looted his glaives or ran off with a GDKP pod or something to that effect. If that's the case, can't really say I'd blame him. As it was a complicated computer virus, it was able to learn and evolve in many ways, even learning Kamala's secret identity, which it did because she was guildmates with that first guy that it was sent after. It began toying with her, threatening to leak her secret, and was even eventually able to gain control of a shiny robot body, which certainly made it easier for Kamala to beat the snot out of. You know, that is almost enough to make me never want to play World of Warcraft again, or World of Battlecraft. You know what? It's all the same thing. Often I will joke with my friends that my pseudo catchphrase here at CBR is comics are weird, which they are. And if you ever doubted that or try to argue with me on that one, I want you to take a look at this next entry really closely. This is the Inventor. He's a clone of Thomas Edison whose DNA was contaminated by a scientist's pet cockatiel. Do I really need to say anything more? Ms. Marvel wound up fighting the man-bird super genius pretty early on in her superhero career when she discovered that he and his creator were kidnapping youths and using them as part of experiments to try to use humans as living batteries. I guess they kind of just watched The Matrix and went, yeah, let's do that. And then they proceeded to not do any research at all. Research that would have told them that when you take into account the cost of keeping people alive and all of the machinery, they would actually be at a net negative in regards to energy gain. Say it with me now, guys and gals. Humans are not good batteries, despite what sci-fi might tell you. Point is, Ms. Marvel wound up kicking the butt of this avian monstrosity, freeing all of those who had been experimented on and cementing herself as a hero worth watching. You remember that guy who the Carol's cadets were supposed to stop from burning down that high school right before Kamala started her beef with Captain Marvel? Well, as it turns out, the dude is a little bit of a jerkface, as he went on to become the masked villain known as Discord. Joshua Richardson has been around within Kamala's comics basically since the very beginning. Eventually, though, he got a hold of a suit of advanced armor that allowed him to generate and discharge powerful electrical charges. She certainly does have a lot of electricity-based baddies in her roster. Maybe someone should look into why. Given his close association with Kamala and his history with her, it would surprise me if he wasn't a part of the Ms. Marvel solo series. Maybe he'll wind up being one of the big bads in the end, a sort of surprise antagonist to really shake things up and show Kamala that being a hero isn't easy. Monopoly has destroyed a lot of friendships over the years and torn families apart. I'm still not talking to my brother after he built a hotel on Baltic Avenue and bought Reading Railroad, even though he knew that I was trying to buy all the railroads. Jerk. But we aren't talking about the board game here. We're talking about Uncle Brett, the CEO of Rubicon, who possesses the ability to turn people into mindless zombies, which he used to turn people into corporate drones to run his business ventures for him. This is an example of a villain that Kamala wasn't really able to take down, as while she was able to put a stop to his evil plans, she wasn't able to actually bring him to justice, because he had just too good of a legal team backing him up. That hits a little too close to reality for comfort. But this C-tier villain didn't really do anything after that, so I guess he doesn't really pose much of a threat to Ms. Marvel, which is why he's pretty low down in the rankings here. Dr. Faustus is exactly what you would expect from a member of Hydra. Snide and condescending, looking down on all others while callously trying to control the world from the shadows. Faustus here really should have aimed a smidge higher though in regards to his whole controlling the world aspirations, as he was thwarted by Ms. Marvel when he attempted to rig the election for mayor of Jersey City. Yep, his big evil scheme was a mayoral campaign, one that he tried and failed to win via gerrymandering. This guy sucks. I don't really have anything else to say about the dude. He just sucks. He did eventually go on and join Hydra's High Council during the whole Secret Empire thing. You know, the story arc with Hydra Cap and all that, but even then, he still sucked. Really? A mayoral campaign? Not even like New York City or anything. Freaking Jersey City. Not to disparage people who live in Jersey, but... Really? Hey there everybody, I'm Aljets. I made this video and I want to know what you think. Who do you think is Ms. Marvel's most powerful foe? Be sure to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, or go ahead and shoot me a response over on Twitter. I'd love to hear from you. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to CBR for more great videos just like this in the future.